secret is the wrong idea. Do your loved ones know what to do in the event of your passing? Do they know how funeral expenses will be covered? Are you leaving them with the bill, even if you actually have it already covered? Last week, we discussed why waiting until you need help when it comes to your affairs is the worst idea. Today, we're discussing why keeping it a secret is the wrong idea. And again, what's the secret? The secret is the secret of your personal affairs when it comes to estate planning, such as where and if you have a will, if you have life insurance policies that can cover funeral expenses, but nobody knows about it, or is there a bank account out there that you just forgot all about? These kinds of issues that tend to pop up when it comes to putting together our estate planning needs. Now, I often say and believe that the biggest problem when it comes to estate planning is that people just don't do it. They just don't do it for many reasons. There are many, many common reasons why. And I believe the most common are fear, right? Fearing that it's going to happen if I do it, right? That's kind of this immediate end because I'm thinking about it, which is not true. So fear, lack of understanding, thinking it's too complex. I don't know enough about it. I'm scared to talk to an attorney about it, right? Again, it kind of all stems back to fear. So those are really kind of the most common issues. But another giant issue that I see often when it comes to this area is just as problematic, and that is creating a plan, having all the plans in place. You know, you got the will, you got the powers of attorney, you have the life insurance policies, you have everything set, but nobody knows about it because you didn't tell anybody about it. What's the point, right? So, I mean, it just cancels out, but it happens. And, you know, it could be because you did that stuff a long time ago. It could be because it's fairly new and you really haven't even had the chance to put it into a bigger plan or really talk it through with other people, but still it cancels out the entire purpose. And we'll see how. We're going to go through 3 common reasons today why keeping it a secret is the wrong idea. And when I say keeping it a secret, intentionally not telling someone, or maybe even just, you know, unintentionally forgetting, it's still a secret because they don't know. So 3 common reasons why keeping it a secret is the wrong idea. First one, number 1 is bills fall on the family. And this happens so much. One of the worst reasons in keeping it a secret is that your family is left in the dark. They still have to not only process, again, how to move on with their own life without you and whoever you are. You may be a parent, you may be a grandparent, you may be an aunt, an uncle, you may be a daughter, a son. You might have some kind of place in the family structure or the community structure where people depend on you, and you're missed, right? I mean, all of our loved ones, we're going to miss them. We're going to miss them all in different ways. But particularly if you are like a foundational piece in the family, not only are they grieving the loss of that strength, the loss of that pillar, now they have to figure out how do they manage without you, because maybe often you were the one responsible for it, right? So not only how to process, how to move on in life without you, but how to manage your assets now, or what to do with those assets now that you can no longer do so, and now that you can't be here to take responsibility. Who's going to do it now, right? So this includes deciding, again, who will get what. And without the benefit of clear instructions from a will or a trust or some other kind of estate planning tool, even if you are still alive, which you actually might have in place, right? Again, maybe you did do all of the work, but you just didn't tell somebody about it. So whether you did it or not, the end result is the same. If you tell nobody, they don't know. So you might as well have not done it in the first place, right? And that kind of confusion, right, without the clear instruction, without knowing exactly where to go and who to give what to and who gets what, without these very clear directions, this can lead to family fighting, conflict, and expense. Now, we've talked about the fighting and the conflict, and we're going to get even deeper and deeper if you just continue to follow along, because often that is the linchpin. The legal stuff is easy. It's the family mess that just can't be dissipated. It can't be separated. And so that just complicates the legal stuff so much more. But today we're talking about the expenses. So again, the bills falling on the family. Oftentimes I see families still scrambling to pay utility bills. They're still scrambling to pay mortgage or other kind of insurance on the home or whatever the asset is, the car, by any means after their loved one has passed. And because it was in their name or they had some kind of ownership interest in it, the asset still has to be paid for. It still has to be paid for, to be accounted for, and so it won't be repossessed or foreclosed, things of that nature. The policy won't lapse, etc. But I often warn that it's not someone else's responsibility to pay it immediately, right? Of course, it has to be paid. It is a high priority. I'm not saying don't go pay the mortgage because you don't have to, right? But it can be time consuming and money draining for someone in the midst of grief to somehow manage to pay bills, manage your affairs that you're not actually responsible for. Okay, I know I'm thinking of a client right now who, as difficult as it is, son passed away. Son was a grown adult, passed away very tragically from a very rare illness. Still had his own home and bills to take care of and things of that nature. And, mother was trying to pay the bills just to make sure that they get kept up. But it's not mother's responsibility, right? It's the estate of the son. But was there something in place? And if there is something in place, who knows about it so that they can then make the necessary changes and adjustments to make sure that everything still gets paid out, the assets are still secured, they're still protected, and then they fall in line to whoever is next, which would have been granddaughter, right? But for someone else to try to take on that responsibility when it's really not theirs is an unnecessary burden. And it's just it's sad to see. I know that you want to be responsible, you want to step up, but you don't have to, especially if there is a plan in place for somebody else to do it. Okay. So that's what number one is really all about when the bills fall on their family. By creating a clear plan that lays out instructions, including how to distribute funds and property and to whom, you can avoid leaving your grief-stricken loved ones to make the decisions during the most difficult and emotional time of their life. All right. Now let's go on to number two, where benefits go unclaimed or delayed. And when I say benefits, I'm especially talking about life insurance policies and bank account beneficiaries. And we're going to really get deep into this. My notes are really big on this, so bear with me. But this is very important because this is one of the most common mistakes I see being made when it comes to the area of estate planning, where there will be a bank account, there will be a life insurance policy, but we don't know who the beneficiary is. And we have an idea, but there's never been a clear understanding, excuse me, and a clear expression of who that is and whether they know it. So let's get into it, okay? So on the flip side, keeping your affairs a secret can block loved ones from receiving funds that you specifically intended to go to them when you pass away. Again, the most common scenarios include life insurance policy funds and bank account funds. Now, too often I see clients who will have life insurance policies, but they are unaware of the company or type of policy. They're unaware of when it started, when it ended, all of these very important details. But most importantly, they are unaware of who the beneficiary of the policy is, okay? Or in plain terms, they don't know who's going to get the money when they die. They don't know. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they changed it. Maybe they meant to change it, weren't sure if they did. And then they haven't told someone about it. They haven't told anyone. Nobody even knows that there's a policy, okay? This can be especially costly and time consuming when it comes to life insurance policies in particular. And I'm saying life insurance policies in particular, but bank accounts can also bring about the same scenario. Okay, so I'm saying life insurance policy, but we can also substitute with bank accounts. And this is because if the beneficiary is unknown, contacting the life insurance company will do little good, bank also, because they will not divulge that information without proper authority. What is proper authority? Going through the entire court process to make sure that there is one person who's been given court authority to gather all that information to ensure that the funds are distributed properly. Okay, so usually if the beneficiary is the person who is named to receive the funds, right? If that hadn't been made clear, the beneficiary is usually aware that they are the beneficiary of the policy. If that's the case, then they can contact the company or go to the bank and provide proof of identification and proof of death, usually with the death certificate, and the funds will be processed to them if they're the beneficiary and go straight to them in a relatively short amount of time. And when it comes to especially life insurance policies, it's tax-free. It doesn't go through the probate process. Bank accounts either. If there's a beneficiary named on it, it's what we call a transfer on death account. That means the funds will immediately transfer to who is named to take over them after the person dies. All right. And when I say relatively short amount of time that this can happen, it can be less than a month. And I'm being generous with that. It can be even less time than that. Okay. But let's just say a month. However, this is the flip side. If the beneficiary is unknown, let's say there's a policy out there, the beneficiary is unknown, there is a bank account that we know about, but we don't know who the beneficiary is. The information will not be given without the probate court paperwork. Okay, that's the proper authority that will name an individual, what we call a personal representative of the estate. That means they're the person that can act on the estate of that person. Okay, and then once that happens in court, then they can gather again the information on that individual, the deceased individual's behalf, and they can distribute the funds as intended. Okay, but what does this do? It opens up a court process. Going to court for this is not only going to cost court filing fees, but also perhaps attorney fees if you need to hire an attorney to help you through the process. What we call estate inventory fees. It means we have to calculate how much is in the estate, how much is in the account, how much perhaps is in the policy. We don't know. We don't know yet. Maybe we're guessing because we don't even know if there's a beneficiary on the policy. Like all these things, it just opens it up to this entire court process. And by the way, it's public record. Okay, so if let's say you were to pass away with $10,000 in a bank account and you named your son to get the money, it will just go to your son. Nobody needs to know about it. But you don't have a beneficiary on account, or we just don't know, $10,000 gets listed on your assets and matter of public record. Okay. But even aside from all that, even aside from the money, right? Even aside from paying court fees, attorney fees, inventory fees, even aside from it being a matter of personal record, the worst part about it all is that it will take time. It will take so much more time. So like I said, if we already know the beneficiary and all that is smooth, we can get the funds perhaps in a month, right? However, going through the court process, it can perhaps take up to 6 months, okay, for those funds to be distributed. And I'm gonna give a real life example here. Okay, so I had a client a couple years ago whose parents tragically passed away. There was a life insurance policy, but it was unknown who the beneficiary was. This happened in January. We had opened up an estate in probate court. All that paperwork was processed by April. Okay, the funds were not distributed until about July. Even though life insurance policy, the company was contacted, even though the paperwork, the court paperwork authorizing someone to get that information, had been executed, the company was just holding on to it for at least 3 months, okay? But just imagine if that had been known already. January, this happened on January 1st also. And then obviously the grieving process, you're not even thinking about getting the money right away. But, if you know it's out there, then you can at least get yourself together. And let's say by February, you can have the money, right? Because you've contacted the company, you've shown proof of death, you've shown your identification, and they know who you are, so they know that they can give the funds to you. So what took something 1 month to do can take 6 months to do, just by that one simple action of naming someone and telling them about it, okay? The time passed. I mean, imagine that, especially for funds that you specifically intend to go to that person, okay? You get a life insurance policy so that when you pass away, someone can have it, right? And it can happen that way, but just, you need to tell them. You need to tell them. And if you can't tell them, tell someone you trust, whether it is the beneficiary or not, again, and give them the information of your policy. Tell your attorney if you need to, so that they know who to contact. And they know, they can tell that person, you have this right to go collect these funds. This is what you need to do. Somebody will know. Tell your banker, tell your accountant, right? Somebody that you can trust with this kind of professional information. If you can't just tell a family member, because you're thinking about family gossip or things like that, okay? And again, the same holds true for bank accounts. And one more worst case scenario, if you will, when it comes to, again, I said this was going to be kind of long and drawn out because there's so much in here, and we'll probably maybe even do a deeper dive on this in the future. But one last caveat when it comes to this, even worse than the benefits being delayed are the benefits being unclaimed. Unclaimed, meaning the policy never gets collected. So imagine paying into a policy every month, every year, sometimes for decades, right? Because you're paying the premium every month. You doing all that only for the purpose never to be fulfilled, the purpose of giving the money to someone when you die. That's why you do it. Okay, the one that you were looking out for never gets the money. That's very sad. How sad is that? Very, very sad. Because it's just wasted time, wasted energy, wasted effort, wasted money. The person never gets it. But how common is it? It's too common. It's so common. Okay, common enough that some states, Michigan included, have a policy search engine online to find out if any unclaimed policy is out there. I've spoken with clients, I've had consultation with clients who too often are unsure themselves about the information in their policy, and they're asking whether they can find it online. And I'm like, yeah, you can, but my best advice, if you will, guard that information closely and confide it in someone you trust. So the process, all the things we talk about, doesn't happen to you, and the entire process of just putting all the energy, the effort, the work, the money into it isn't for nothing. You pay for that policy, you put that money in that bank so someone can collect it one day on your death, put their name on it, tell them about it. If you can't tell them, tell someone you trust. That way the money goes straight to them, doesn't have to go to court, doesn't have to be opened up to public record, doesn't have to have other fees come out of it. Okay, it'll go straight to them because that's what you wanted. All right, now number 3, this is the final one we're talking about when it comes to why keeping it a secret is the wrong idea. So let's just recap really quickly. Number 1 was because the bills fall on the family. Number 2 is because benefits go unclaimed or delayed. Now we're here at number 3, because burdens cause bitterness. And this is more of an emotional issue, again, not so much a legal issue. We just talked about the real legal stuff, right? The benefits going unclaimed and delayed. But I'm finding more and more often that, especially when it comes to estate, I won't say estate planning, just any kind of family issues when it comes to the law, the emotional core is so strong that if you don't discuss it, I don't care what legal case you cite, what statute, it doesn't matter. Okay, because families are going to go where families go. They're not looking at the law for it. I often told myself I didn't want to do family law, which is, marriages, divorce, child custody, child support. I was like, I don't want to do that. That's too much drama. That's too much emotion. There's just as much emotion when it comes to estate planning, okay? Because all of these things come up, right? There are unresolved family conflicts. There are issues. There are things that are kept secret from people. And then once they find out and it comes to light, they feel a certain way about it, okay? And so that's what this one is about. Burdens cause bitterness. Not only keeping not only your personal affairs a secret, but perhaps even the state of your health often causes burdens on the family that can lead to bitterness. They may be left wondering, why didn't you tell them? Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped you. Why did you keep it a secret? Why go through all the trouble of creating a plan, right? Like we said, because a lot of times some of this stuff is in place, but nobody says anything about it. You did all that, but you didn't tell me, right? Why go through all that if you're not going to share it with me? If you're not going to share it with the family so that we can know what we need to do, While eventually these questions may dissolve over time and feelings will change, death is one of the greatest difficulties in life and one of the most emotionally charged periods we will ever experience. Rather than throwing more fire into the emotional oven by not telling them, keeping it a secret, right? All these kind of, I don't even say negative actions, but actions that have negative consequences, okay? So rather than throwing more fire into the emotional oven, let's quench those flames. Let's die it out slowly and appropriately by sharing your plans with loved ones that you can confide in, especially those who you plan to benefit long after you are gone. And of course, and this we're going to deep dive into for sure in the future, selecting the appropriate individuals you can trust with this information is an entirely separate issue. And I've already mentioned it a few times, so I'm not just saying go and tell everybody. That's not what this is, all right? However, it does not negate the fact that sharing with the right people can and will help smooth over the situation, especially since everyone doesn't process grief in the same way. It can be extremely helpful to prepare those who may deal with the worst. They may deal with grief the worst. They may hold on to it longer. All the negative emotions, it'll take them longer to let it go. So it can be extremely helpful to help them as much as possible ahead of time so that they can have that extra time to cope appropriately, to cope emotionally, to cope healthily, okay? Instead of being dumped with such intense feelings all at once with these questions, right? I could have, and these questions cause emotion. So why didn't you tell me? Oh, I could have done more, and then that guilt starts to set in, and that can be very, very hard to get rid of, because once people accept it, it's hard to let go. All right. So that's why you want to definitely make sure that you confide in somebody that you trust and you tell them. You tell them so that you can avoid all of these negative consequences. Okay. So in conclusion, I'm going to close with just a little bit of scripture because I think it's appropriate when we're talking about why keeping it a secret is the wrong idea. So as the scripture says, write the vision and make it plain. Now, this doesn't mean, again, say or tell the vision before you write it. That's not what it says. But it does mean let them know about it by making it plain so that they may be able to carry it out as you wrote it. Okay? No one can help you if you don't tell them where and how to carry out your instructions, or if you give them no instructions to even follow. Worst of all, in failing to tell them, you cannot help them, which may be your sole intention in even beginning the plans in the first place. So use wisdom. It can begin a secret, but don't keep it a secret. Someone is depending on you to share your vision. I hope this helps you. If so, please do like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.